Welcome to British Accent Podcast.
Welcome back to British Accent Podcast. Today, Nick and I are talking about something many English learners experience: practicing English alone. A lot of people believe that without a partner or a teacher, progress becomes slow. But the truth is, learning alone can be powerful if you do it the right way.
That is true, Alexa. Many learners wait for perfect conditions, such as having native speakers around them or joining expensive courses. While those things can help, they are not always necessary. Practicing alone allows you to focus deeply, control your pace, and build strong habits.
Exactly. One of the biggest advantages of practicing alone is freedom. You can choose topics you truly enjoy. When learning feels personal, motivation grows naturally. For example, talking about your daily routine, your goals, or even your thoughts in English can be more useful than memorizing random sentences.
I agree. Speaking alone often feels strange at first, but it trains your brain to think in English. When learners speak only during class, progress becomes limited. But when you describe your actions while cooking, walking, or planning your day, English becomes part of your life.
Another important point is listening practice. Many learners listen passively, meaning the audio plays but the mind drifts away. When practicing alone, it is better to listen actively. Pause the audio, repeat sentences, notice pronunciation, and pay attention to rhythm and stress.
Yes, and repetition is not boring when it has a purpose. Listening to the same short audio several times helps your ears adjust. The first time, you understand the idea. The second time, you notice details. The third time, your confidence increases because the language feels familiar.
Reading aloud is also underrated. Some learners think reading silently is enough, but speaking the words out loud trains pronunciation and fluency. It also helps connect spelling with sound, which is important for British pronunciation.
That is a good point. Writing can support speaking as well. Writing short paragraphs about your day or your opinions helps organize thoughts. Later, you can read what you wrote and turn it into spoken practice. This creates a smooth bridge between thinking and speaking.
Many learners worry about mistakes when practicing alone. But mistakes are part of progress. When no one is watching, there is less pressure. You can repeat sentences, correct yourself, and try again without fear. That safety builds confidence over time.
Confidence grows when learners track progress. Recording your voice once a week is very effective. At first, the voice may sound uncomfortable, but after some time, improvement becomes clear. Pronunciation becomes smoother, and sentences flow more naturally.
Another helpful method is shadowing. This means listening to a speaker and repeating at the same time. It trains speed, intonation, and natural phrasing. Even a few minutes a day can make a big difference.
Practicing alone does not mean practicing without structure. Setting a simple routine helps maintain consistency. For example, 10 minutes of listening, 10 minutes of speaking, and 10 minutes of reading every day can create strong results over weeks.
Consistency really is the key. Short daily practice is more effective than long sessions once a week. When English becomes part of your routine, improvement happens quietly but steadily.
And perhaps the most important idea is patience. Fluency does not arrive suddenly. It builds sentence by sentence, day by day. Practicing alone is not a weakness. It is often the strongest foundation for long-term progress.
One thing learners often forget is that English does not need to sound perfect to be useful. When you practice alone, the goal is clarity, not perfection. If your message is clear, you are already communicating successfully, and accuracy will improve naturally with time.
That mindset is very important. Many learners stop speaking because they are afraid of sounding incorrect. Practicing alone removes that pressure. You can focus on expressing ideas instead of judging every sentence. This helps your speaking become more relaxed and natural.
Another effective habit is thinking in English during quiet moments. When you are waiting, traveling, or resting, you can describe your surroundings in your mind. This trains your brain to form sentences quickly without translation.
Yes, translation slows fluency. When learners practice forming ideas directly in English, they reduce hesitation. Even simple thoughts like planning the day or reviewing what happened earlier can become valuable practice.
Vocabulary learning also works better alone when it is connected to real life. Instead of memorizing long lists, learners can collect words related to their daily activities. This makes the vocabulary easier to remember and easier to use in conversation.
And using new words in sentences is more effective than only remembering meanings. When learners speak or write with new vocabulary, the words become active. This is when real improvement begins.
Grammar often worries learners, but practicing alone allows gentle improvement. You do not need to study complex rules every day. Noticing patterns through listening and reading helps grammar develop naturally.
I agree. Grammar becomes clearer when learners see it used repeatedly in context. Short articles, podcast transcripts, or subtitles can all support this process. Over time, correct structures start to feel normal.
Another helpful technique is self-questioning. Learners can ask themselves questions and answer them out loud. This stimulates real conversation and prepares the mind for future interactions.
That technique also improves response speed. When learners practice answering questions alone, they become quicker and more confident in real conversations. This reduces long pauses and overthinking.
Pronunciation practice can also be focused when learning alone. Choosing one sound or one stress pattern per day keeps practice simple and effective. Small improvements build strong results.
Yes, especially with British pronunciation, attention to stress and rhythm matters more than individual sounds. Practicing sentence stress helps speech sound clearer and more natural.
Motivation can sometimes drop when learning alone, so setting clear reasons for learning English helps. When learners remember why they started, practice feels meaningful instead of forced.
And celebrating small progress is important. Understanding a full podcast episode, speaking for 5 minutes without stopping, or learning 10 useful words are all signs of growth.
Practicing English alone is not about isolation. It is about preparation. When learners eventually speak with others, they feel ready because they have already trained their skills privately.
That preparation creates confidence. Confidence changes how people speak, listen, and react. It turns English from a school subject into a real communication tool.
Over time, practicing alone builds independence. Learners no longer depend on teachers or classes to improve. They know how to guide their own progress and adjust their methods.
And that independence often leads to faster improvement, because learners understand what works best for them and what needs more attention.
English learning becomes less stressful when learners accept that progress is personal. Everyone moves at a different speed, and practicing alone respects that pace.
That is true. When learners stop comparing themselves to others, they can focus fully on their own journey and enjoy the process more deeply.
Enjoyment is often overlooked, but it plays a huge role in long-term success. When practice feels enjoyable, consistency becomes much easier.
And consistency, built through simple daily habits, is what quietly transforms learners into confident English speakers.
Another area where practicing alone helps is building awareness. When you speak by yourself, you start noticing patterns in your own speech. You become aware of words you overuse, pauses that appear too often, and sounds that need more attention.
That awareness is powerful because it leads to self-correction. Learners do not need constant feedback from others. By listening to their own recordings, they can hear progress and also notice where improvement is needed.
Some learners worry that speaking alone feels unnatural, but fluency itself is trained through repetition. Athletes practice movements alone before competitions, and language works in a similar way. Practice prepares the mind for real interaction.
That comparison makes sense. Real conversations feel easier when the brain has already rehearsed ideas. Practicing alone creates mental pathways that make spontaneous speech smoother.
Using prompts can also make solo practice more structured. Simple prompts, like describing a photo, explaining a decision, or sharing an opinion, help create focused speaking sessions.
And prompts reduce hesitation. When learners know what to talk about, they can focus on fluency instead of searching for ideas. This makes practice more productive.
Another useful habit is retelling. After watching a short video or listening to a podcast, learners can retell the main points in their own words. This improves both understanding and speaking.
Retelling strengthens memory and encourages paraphrasing. It helps learners move away from repeating exact sentences and start using language creatively.
Silence can also be part of learning. Taking a moment to think before speaking helps organize ideas. Practicing alone allows learners to balance speed and clarity without pressure.
That balance is important. Speaking too fast can reduce clarity, while speaking too slowly can reduce confidence. Solo practice helps learners find their natural rhythm.
Some learners prefer structure, while others prefer flexibility. Practicing alone supports both. You can follow a plan or adjust your practice depending on energy and mood.
Flexibility keeps learning sustainable. When learners force long sessions, burnout appears. Short and flexible practice keeps motivation alive.
Exposure to different accents is also useful. Listening to a variety of speakers trains the ear and improves comprehension. This makes future conversations less stressful.
And even when focusing on British pronunciation, hearing other accents improves adaptability. It teaches learners that English has many voices, not just one standard sound.
Mistakes in solo practice should be seen as information, not failure. Each mistake shows what needs attention. This mindset changes frustration into curiosity.
Curiosity keeps learners engaged. When mistakes are treated as learning tools, progress feels lighter and more enjoyable.
Over time, practicing alone builds inner confidence. Learners trust their ability to express ideas, even when words are missing.
That trust allows learners to communicate despite imperfections. And communication, not perfection, is the true goal of language learning.
As English becomes part of daily thinking, practice stops feeling like study. It becomes a habit, like reflecting or planning.
And when English becomes a habit, improvement continues quietly, even on days when practice feels simple.
This quiet improvement is often the most powerful because it grows steadily and stays long-term.
That steady growth is what turns solo practice into real fluency over time.
One more thing that deserves attention is mindset during solo practice. Many learners treat practice as a test, judging every sentence they produce. When practicing alone, it is healthier to treat English as a tool for expression, not an exam. This shift reduces stress and allows ideas to flow more freely.
That shift changes everything. When learners stop monitoring every word, their speech becomes more natural. Accuracy improves later, but fluency needs space first. Solo practice provides that space without external pressure or interruption.
Time management also matters. Some learners believe they need long hours to see progress, but quality matters more than quantity. Focused practice for a short period can be more effective than unfocused study for hours.
Short sessions also fit better into daily life. When practice feels realistic, it becomes sustainable. This consistency creates progress that feels stable instead of exhausting.
Environment plays a role too. Practicing in a calm and familiar space helps learners relax. When the body is relaxed, the mind processes language more efficiently.
That is true. Stress often blocks speech. A comfortable environment allows learners to experiment with language and take risks. which is necessary for improvement.
Using real-life language is another key element. Textbooks are useful, but everyday English comes from conversations, podcasts, and personal stories. Solo practice should reflect how language is actually used.
And real-life language includes emotions, opinions, and personal experiences. When learners talk about things they care about, language becomes meaningful and easier to remember.
Another powerful technique is role-playing alone. Learners can imagine situations like interviews, phone calls, or casual conversations and respond out loud. This prepares them for real interactions.
Role-playing builds confidence because the situation no longer feels unfamiliar. When learners face similar moments in real life, their responses feel ready instead of forced.
Some learners feel discouraged when progress feels slow. In those moments, it helps to look back and notice small changes. Understanding more, speaking longer, or thinking faster are signs of growth.
Progress in language learning is often gradual. It does not always feel dramatic, but it is always happening beneath the surface when practice continues.
Self-compassion is also important. Learners should allow themselves to have slow days. Practicing alone means learning to support yourself instead of criticizing yourself.
That support builds resilience. When learners stay kind to themselves, they are more likely to continue even during difficult periods.
Over time, solo practice strengthens internal dialogue. Learners become more comfortable forming thoughts in English without effort.
And that internal comfort leads to external confidence. Speaking with others feels less intimidating because the language already feels familiar.
English learning becomes less about reaching a final level and more about ongoing growth. Practicing alone teaches learners how to keep improving without depending on others.
That independence is empowering. It turns learners into active participants in their own progress rather than passive receivers of information.
When learners understand this, practicing alone no longer feels like a temporary solution. It becomes a long-term skill that supports fluency in any situation.
And that skill continues to develop as long as learners stay curious and consistent with their practice.
Another helpful approach in solo practice is reflection. After a short speaking session, learners can take a moment to think about what felt easy and what felt difficult. This reflection guides future practice and prevents repeating the same habits without improvement.
Reflection turns practice into learning. Without it, learners may speak a lot but improve slowly. When learners notice patterns, they can focus on specific areas instead of practicing randomly.
Goal setting also becomes clearer when practicing alone. Goals do not need to be big or complex. Simple goals like speaking for 5 minutes without stopping or using 5 new words can keep practice focused.
Clear goals create direction. When learners know what they want to achieve in a session, motivation stays higher and progress feels more visible.
Listening to your own voice can feel uncomfortable at first, but it is one of the fastest ways to improve. Over time, learners become more objective and less emotional about how they sound.
That distance helps improvement. Instead of feeling embarrassed, learners start listening like a coach. They notice clarity, pacing, and pronunciation with a more practical mindset.
Technology can also support solo practice. Voice recording apps, subtitles, and transcripts make learning more interactive. Used wisely, these tools add structure without replacing real thinking.
Tools should support practice, not control it. When learners actively use tools, instead of passively consuming content, learning becomes more effective.
Another important habit is revisiting old material. Reviewing past notes or recordings shows progress clearly. It also refreshes vocabulary and structures that may have been forgotten.
Reviewing builds confidence. When learners see improvement over time, they trust the process more and worry less about temporary difficulties.
Pronunciation improves faster when learners focus on phrases instead of single words. Speaking in chunks helps rhythm and makes speech sound more natural.
Chunks also reduce thinking time. When learners store common phrases, they speak more smoothly without building every sentence from scratch.
Silence between words often comes from searching for structure. Practicing sentence patterns alone reduces this hesitation and improves flow.
And as flow improves, learners feel more relaxed while speaking. That relaxation makes listening and responding easier in real conversations.
Learning alone also builds discipline. Learners choose to practice even when motivation is low. This discipline supports long-term success.
Discipline does not mean strict rules. It means showing up regularly, even for a short time, and trusting that effort adds up.
When English becomes part of daily habits, learners no longer need strong motivation every day. Practice happens naturally.
That natural practice keeps skills active and prevents regression, even during busy periods.
Solo practice teaches learners how to learn. That skill remains valuable beyond English and supports growth in other areas as well.
And with that learning skill, learners become more confident in facing new challenges and unfamiliar language situations.
Another aspect of practicing alone is emotional connection. When learners speak about personal experiences, emotions, and opinions, the language becomes more memorable. This kind of practice strengthens both fluency and confidence because the content matters to the speaker.
Personal content creates deeper engagement. When learners care about what they are saying, they naturally search for clearer ways to express ideas. This pushes language growth without forcing it.
It also helps learners develop their own voice in English. Instead of copying textbook phrases, they begin to sound like themselves. That individuality is an important step toward natural communication.
Finding your own voice takes time, but solo practice supports it well. When learners are not trying to impress anyone, they experiment more freely with language and style.
Routine review sessions can be useful too. Once a week, learners can reflect on what they practiced and decide what to focus on next. This keeps learning organized without becoming rigid.
Weekly reflection prevents frustration. Instead of feeling lost, learners see a clear path forward and understand their progress better.
Another technique is expanding answers. When learners answer simple questions, they can practice adding details, examples, and explanations. This trains longer and more natural responses.
Longer responses improve fluency and coherence. Learners become comfortable holding the floor, which is a key skill in conversations and discussions.
It is also helpful to practice summarizing. Learners can summarize articles, videos, or even their own thoughts in a few sentences. This builds clarity and structure.
Summarizing strengthens understanding. It forces learners to focus on key ideas instead of translating everything word by word.
Some learners worry that practicing alone limits interaction skills. But solo practice actually prepares learners to interact better because they have already organized their thoughts.
That preparation makes real conversations feel lighter. Learners can focus on listening and responding instead of building every sentence under pressure.
Confidence grows quietly through repetition. Each solo session adds a small layer of comfort with the language.
Those small layers create stability. Over time, English feels less foreign and more familiar.
When English feels familiar, learners take more risks. They try new words, new structures, and new ways of expressing ideas.
Risk-taking is essential for progress. Without it, learners stay in safe patterns and growth slows.
Practicing alone encourages responsibility. Learners take control of their progress and stop waiting for permission to improve.
That control creates motivation from within. Learners practice because they choose to, not because someone tells them to.
Over time, English learning becomes less about effort and more about habit. That habit supports continuous improvement.
And continuous improvement keeps learners moving forward, even when progress feels slow on the surface.
Another important point is dealing with plateaus. Many learners reach a state where improvement feels slow, even though they practice regularly. Practicing alone helps during these periods because it allows learners to adjust their methods without pressure from others.
Plateaus are normal, but they often mean the brain is reorganizing information. During solo practice, learners can slow down, focus on clarity, and strengthen weak areas instead of rushing forward.
Changing focus can help as well. If speaking feels difficult, learners can spend more time listening or reading for a while. This input feeds the brain and often leads to sudden improvements in speaking later.
That balance between input and output is essential. Speaking improves faster when it is supported by strong listening and reading habits.
Another strategy is noticing collocations. Learning which words naturally go together makes speech sound smoother and more natural. Practicing alone allows learners to repeat these phrases until they feel comfortable.
Collocations reduce hesitation because learners do not need to build sentences word by word. The phrases come out as a unit, which improves fluency.
Some learners feel unsure about their accent when practicing alone. But accent clarity improves through exposure and repetition, not through constant correction. Solo practice builds muscle memory in the mouth.
That muscle memory develops gradually. When learners repeat phrases with attention to rhythm and stress, pronunciation becomes clearer without conscious effort.
It is also useful to practice different speaking speeds. Learners can speak slowly for accuracy and then speak a little faster for fluency. This trains flexibility.
Flexibility helps in real conversations, where speed often changes depending on the situation and the speaker.
Practicing alone also improves listening to yourself while speaking. Learners become better at noticing when something sounds unclear and adjusting it in real time.
That self-monitoring skill is very valuable. It allows learners to correct themselves naturally without breaking communication.
Another helpful habit is setting themes for practice days. One day can focus on daily life, another on opinions, and another on storytelling. This keeps practice varied.
Variety prevents boredom and ensures balanced skill development. It also exposes learners to different types of language use.
Storytelling is especially powerful. When learners tell stories from their past or imagine future situations, they practice tense use and logical structure.
Stories also help memory. Language connected to stories is easier to recall than isolated sentences.
Practicing alone teaches learners to listen patiently. When speaking without interruption, learners learn how to organize longer ideas clearly.
That patience improves communication quality. Learners become better at explaining ideas step by step.
Over time, learners start trusting their instincts. They choose words more quickly and rely less on conscious rules.
That instinctive use of English is a strong sign of progress and often appears through consistent solo practice.
English then becomes less about effort and more about expression. Learners focus on meaning instead of form.
And when meaning becomes the focus, communication feels more natural and satisfying.
Another valuable skill that grows through solo practice is self-listening. When learners speak alone, they are not only producing language but also hearing it at the same time. This trains the brain to process input and output together, which is essential for real-time communication.
That combination strengthens fluency. Many learners can understand English and also speak English, but doing both at the same time feels difficult. Solo speaking practice slowly connects these two skills.
It also helps learners become more aware of clarity. When no one interrupts or fills gaps, learners notice when explanations feel confusing. This encourages clearer structure and better word choice.
Clear structure is often more important than advanced vocabulary. When ideas are organized well, listeners can follow easily, even if the language is simple.
Practicing explanations is useful too. Learners can explain simple processes, opinions, or ideas as if they were teaching someone else. Teaching forces clarity and logical thinking.
Explaining ideas also strengthens confidence. When learners realize they can explain something clearly in English, they start trusting their ability more.
Another technique is paraphrasing. After saying something once, learners can practice saying the same idea in a different way. This expands vocabulary and flexibility.
Paraphrasing reduces fear of forgetting words. Learners understand that there is always another way to express the same meaning.
Practicing alone also improves patience with silence. Learners learn that pauses are not failures. They are moments to think and organize ideas.
That patience reduces anxiety. When learners stop fearing silence, they speak more calmly and with better control.
Another area to work on is linking ideas. Using connectors like however, because, and for example helps speech sound more natural and organized.
Connectors act like bridges. They guide listeners and make speech easier to follow, especially in longer responses.
When learners practice alone, they can focus on one connector or structure at a time. This targeted practice is difficult in fast conversations.
Targeted practice speeds up improvement. Instead of spreading effort everywhere, learners strengthen specific areas step by step.
Solo practice also helps learners build endurance. Speaking for longer periods becomes easier over time.
That endurance is important in real conversations, presentations, or interviews, where short answers are not always enough.
Learners often discover that their vocabulary is larger than they thought. Speaking alone gives them time to access words without pressure.
That discovery builds confidence. When learners realize they already know a lot, motivation increases.
Another benefit is control over topic difficulty. Learners can start with familiar topics and slowly move to more abstract ideas.
This gradual increase keeps practice challenging, but not overwhelming, which is ideal for steady progress.
Over time, English becomes less something you practice and more something you use to think and reflect.
And when English becomes a thinking tool, fluency develops in a very natural and lasting way.
Another point that often goes unnoticed is how solo practice improves mental organization. When learners speak alone, they have time to shape their ideas fully, from the beginning to the end. This helps them learn how to introduce a topic, develop it, and explain it clearly without losing focus.
That ability is extremely useful. Many learners know what they want to say, but their ideas come out in a confusing order. Practicing alone allows them to experiment with structure and discover what sounds clear and logical.
This is especially helpful for learners who want to speak in meetings, presentations, or academic settings. Being able to explain ideas in a structured way often matters more than using advanced vocabulary.
Structure creates confidence. When learners know where their explanation is going, they speak with less hesitation and more control, even in challenging situations.
Another benefit of practicing alone is developing patience with yourself. Language learning takes time, and solo practice teaches learners to accept gradual progress instead of expecting instant results.
That patience reduces frustration. When learners understand that improvement is slow but steady, they are less likely to give up during difficult periods.
Solo practice also encourages honesty. Learners cannot hide their weaknesses from themselves. They hear exactly where they struggle and where they succeed.
That honesty is valuable. It allows learners to focus on real needs instead of guessing what to improve.
Another useful habit is practicing opinion building. Learners can choose a simple topic and explain what they think and why. This develops critical thinking in English.
Giving opinions builds depth in speech. Learners move beyond short answers and start expressing ideas more clearly and confidently.
This kind of practice also prepares learners for discussions. When opinions are already organized in English, real conversations become less stressful.
Stress often comes from thinking and translating at the same time. Solo practice reduces this by preparing ideas in advance.
Practicing alone also helps learners develop consistency in tone. They begin to sound calmer and more balanced instead of rushed or tense.
That calm tone improves communication. Listeners can focus on the message instead of struggling to follow the speaker.
Another area that improves naturally is pacing. Learners learn when to slow down and when to move forward in their speech.
Good pacing makes speech pleasant to listen to and easier to understand, especially for non-native listeners.
Over time, solo practice creates a sense of ownership. Learners feel that English belongs to them, not just to teachers or textbooks.
That ownership changes attitude. English becomes a personal skill rather than a school subject.
When learners reach that stage, practicing alone no longer feels lonely. It feels purposeful and empowering.
And that sense of purpose often leads to deeper commitment and long-term improvement.
Another aspect that solo practice develops is emotional control while speaking. Many learners feel nervous even when they know the language. Practicing alone helps separate emotion from ability. When learners speak regularly without pressure, anxiety slowly loses its power.
That emotional control is important. Nervousness often causes learners to forget words they already know. Solo practice creates a safe environment where the brain can relax and access language more easily.
It also helps learners become comfortable with their own voice in English. At first, hearing yourself can feel strange, but with repetition, the voice starts to sound familiar and natural.
Once the voice feels familiar, confidence increases. Learners stop focusing on how they sound and start focusing on what they want to say.
Another helpful practice is describing abstract ideas. Topics like goals, values, or personal growth push learners to use more complex language and connect ideas logically.
Abstract topics encourage deeper thinking. They help learners practice linking ideas and explaining reasons, which strengthens overall fluency.
Solo practice also allows learners to control the difficulty level of their language. They can simplify ideas when needed or challenge themselves with longer explanations.
That control keeps practice balanced. Learners avoid feeling overwhelmed while still making progress.
Another powerful habit is revisiting the same topic after some time. Speaking about the same idea again shows improvement clearly.
Revisiting topics reveals growth. Learners notice smoother sentences, better vocabulary, and clearer structure.
This also builds motivation because progress becomes visible, not just imagined.
Visible progress strengthens commitment. Learners trust that their effort is working.
Practicing alone also improves awareness of filler habits, such as repeating the same words too often. Learners can actively work on replacing them.
Reducing repetition improves clarity and makes speech sound more confident and controlled.
Another benefit is learning how to recover when you forget a word. Learners practice explaining ideas in different ways instead of stopping.
That recovery skill is essential in real conversations, where forgetting words is normal.
Over time, learners begin to speak with more intention. Each sentence has a clear purpose.
That intention makes communication stronger and more engaging for listeners.
Solo practice also supports independence. Learners become less dependent on feedback and more confident in self-evaluation.
Self-evaluation builds maturity in learning. It allows learners to guide their own improvement effectively.
When learners reach this stage, English learning becomes a personal journey rather than a task.
And that personal connection often leads to deeper, more lasting fluency.
Another strength of practicing English alone is the ability to slow everything down. In real conversations, things move quickly, and learners often feel rushed. Solo practice removes that pressure and allows time to choose words carefully, organize ideas clearly, and build confidence step by step.
That slower pace is very helpful. When learners give themselves time, they notice patterns in their speech and understand why certain sentences work better than others. This awareness rarely happens in fast conversations.
Solo practice also encourages deeper thinking. Instead of responding quickly, learners can explore an idea fully, add examples, and explain their reasoning in detail. This helps develop more mature and natural English.
Yes, and that depth prepares learners for advanced situations like discussions, presentations, or interviews. They are not just reacting but expressing complete thoughts with clarity.
Another important benefit is building trust in your own judgment. When practicing alone, learners decide what sounds right, what feels clear, and what needs improvement. This builds independence over time.
That independence is crucial. Learners stop waiting for approval and start trusting their instincts, which makes speaking more confident and fluent.
Practicing alone also allows learners to explore different speaking styles. They can practice formal explanations one day and casual storytelling another day, depending on their goals.
Exploring different styles increases flexibility. Learners become comfortable adjusting their language to different situations and audiences.
Another useful habit is focusing on transitions. Practicing how to move from one idea to another smoothly improves flow and coherence.
Smooth transitions make speech easier to follow. Listeners can understand the direction of the message without confusion.
Solo practice also strengthens concentration. Without distractions, learners can fully focus on their speech and notice small improvements.
That focus accelerates learning. When attention is sharp, progress becomes more efficient.
Another benefit is learning how to restart gracefully after a mistake. Learners practice correcting themselves calmly instead of stopping completely.
This skill is very important in real conversations, where mistakes happen naturally.
Over time, learners notice that English becomes more automatic. Sentences form faster and thinking feels smoother.
That automaticity is a sign that the brain is adapting and building strong language pathways.
Practicing alone also helps learners develop discipline without stress. They practice because they want to, not because they feel forced.
That voluntary discipline supports long-term success and prevents burnout.
English learning then becomes part of daily life, not a separate activity.
And when English blends into daily life, progress continues naturally and consistently.
Another powerful benefit of practicing alone is control over focus. Learners can decide to work on one specific weakness without distraction. This focused attention helps improvement happen faster and with less confusion.
That focus is often missing in group settings. When learning alone, learners are not comparing themselves to others or adjusting to different levels. They work at their own pace and address their own needs.
Solo practice also allows learners to repeat difficult parts without feeling embarrassed. They can practice a sentence many times until it feels natural, which is essential for building fluency.
Repetition without judgment is one of the strongest tools in language learning. It builds confidence quietly and effectively.
Another area that improves is vocabulary precision. Learners start choosing words more carefully, noticing differences in meaning, and avoiding vague expressions.
That precision improves clarity. Listeners understand ideas more easily when words are chosen thoughtfully.
Practicing alone also helps learners manage pace in longer explanations. They learn where to pause, where to emphasize, and how to keep listeners engaged.
Those skills are especially useful in storytelling, presentations, and professional communication.
Another helpful habit is imagining a listener. Even when practicing alone, learners can picture someone listening and adjust their explanation accordingly.
That imagined audience improves clarity and relevance. Learners practice making their message understandable.
Solo practice also supports long-term memory. Language used actively is remembered more strongly than language only read or heard.
Active use strengthens neural connections. The brain remembers what it uses regularly.
Over time, learners notice that ideas come more quickly. They spend less time searching for words and more time expressing meaning.
That speed reduces hesitation and makes conversations feel more natural.
Practicing alone also teaches learners to be comfortable with progress that is not immediately visible.
That acceptance helps learners stay patient and consistent over time.
English then becomes a tool for thinking, planning, and reflecting, not just speaking.
And when English becomes part of thinking, fluency continues to grow naturally.
Another element that grows quietly through solo practice is confidence in decision-making. When learners speak alone, they constantly make small choices about vocabulary, structure, and tone. Over time, these choices become faster and more natural, which reduces hesitation in real conversations.
That speed in decision-making is important. Many learners hesitate not because they lack knowledge, but because they doubt their choices. Solo practice trains the brain to commit to a sentence and move forward without second-guessing every word.
Solo practice also helps learners become comfortable with imperfection. When no one is listening, learners realize that communication still works even when sentences are not perfect. This reduces fear and builds resilience.
That resilience changes how learners approach speaking. Instead of stopping after a mistake, they continue, adjust, and express the idea in another way. This flexibility is a strong sign of real fluency.
Another benefit is developing awareness of tone. Learners can practice sounding calm, polite, confident, or thoughtful, depending on the message they want to deliver.
Tone often matters more than grammar. Practicing tone alone helps learners communicate emotion and intention more clearly.
Solo practice also improves logical flow. Learners notice when ideas jump too quickly and learn to guide the listener step by step.
That guidance makes speech easier to follow. Listeners feel more comfortable when the speaker leads them clearly through an idea.
Another useful habit is setting small challenges. For example, explaining a topic without using certain common words encourages creativity and deeper vocabulary use.
Those challenges push learners gently outside their comfort zone without overwhelming them.
Practicing alone also builds tolerance for longer speaking time. Learners gradually increase how long they can speak without feeling tired or blocked.
That endurance is especially useful for discussions, exams, and professional situations where extended speaking is required.
Another improvement is awareness of sentence length. Learners begin to balance short and long sentences more naturally.
That balance makes speech sound more natural and easier to understand.
Over time, learners stop measuring progress only by accuracy. They start noticing clarity, confidence, and comfort as signs of improvement.
Those signs often appear before perfect accuracy, and they show that real communication skills are developing.
Another quiet change that happens with solo practice is how learners relate to mistakes. Instead of seeing them as interruptions, mistakes become signals. They show where attention is needed, and this shifts the learning experience from frustration to understanding.
That shift is important. When mistakes are seen as information, learners stay calmer and more focused. They correct themselves thoughtfully rather than reacting emotionally.
Solo practice also helps learners recognize progress in subtle ways. Sometimes improvement appears as smoother thinking, faster reactions, or clearer ideas rather than obvious grammar changes.
Those subtle signs often mean that the language is becoming internalized. The brain is processing English more efficiently, even if the learner does not notice dramatic changes.
Another benefit is building comfort with extended explanations. Learners practice developing an idea fully instead of stopping after one or two sentences.
That ability is essential in many real situations, such as explaining a problem, sharing an experience, or expressing an opinion in detail.
Practicing alone also helps learners explore cause and effect. Explaining why something happened or why an opinion exists builds logical connections in English.
Those logical connections strengthen coherence. Speech becomes easier to follow and more convincing.
Another habit that develops is patience with progress. Learners understand that improvement comes from regular effort, not sudden breakthroughs.
That understanding reduces pressure. Learners stop rushing and start trusting the process.
Solo practice also encourages learners to revisit difficult topics instead of avoiding them. With time, those topics become manageable.
Facing difficulty builds confidence. Each challenge completed increases belief in one's ability.
Another improvement is comfort with self-correction. Learners adjust sentences smoothly without stopping or apologizing.
That smooth correction keeps communication flowing and sounds natural to listeners.
Over time, English becomes less of a performance and more of a tool for thinking and sharing ideas.
And when English reaches that stage, learners communicate with more ease and authenticity.
Another change that often appears with consistent solo practice is a stronger sense of direction while speaking. Learners begin a sentence knowing roughly where it will end. This reduces wandering explanations and helps ideas sound more intentional and clear.
That sense of direction is very noticeable in confident speakers. They may pause, but the pauses feel purposeful. Practicing alone gives learners the space to develop this skill without interruption or pressure.
Solo practice also helps learners separate content from language. Instead of thinking only about grammar, they start focusing on the message itself. This makes speech sound more natural and less mechanical.
When the message becomes the priority, language follows more smoothly. Learners stop building sentences word by word and start expressing complete ideas.
Another advantage is the ability to revisit the same idea from different angles. Learners can explain a topic simply, then try a more detailed explanation, and later try a more formal version.
That flexibility builds range. Learners become comfortable adjusting their language depending on the situation or the listener.
Practicing alone also encourages awareness of emphasis. Learners start noticing which words carry meaning and how stress changes the message.
This awareness improves clarity and makes speech more engaging. Listeners understand what matters most in the message.
Another useful habit is practicing summarizing long thoughts into short conclusions. This trains clarity and helps learners communicate efficiently.
That skill is especially useful in professional or academic settings, where clear conclusions are valued.
Solo practice also allows learners to slow down their internal dialogue. Instead of rushing to speak, they learn to think calmly in English.
Calm thinking reduces anxiety and leads to more confident speech.
Another improvement is control over tone during longer explanations. Learners avoid sounding flat or rushed because they practice maintaining balance.
Balanced tone keeps listeners engaged and makes communication more effective.
Over time, learners notice that English no longer feels like something separate from them. It becomes part of how they organize thoughts.
And when that happens, speaking feels less like practice and more like natural expression.
Another important effect of solo practice is how it shapes internal dialogue. Learners begin to use English not only for speaking but also for thinking, planning, and reflecting. This internal use strengthens fluency in a quiet but powerful way.
Internal dialogue reduces the gap between thought and speech. When learners already think in English, speaking feels more immediate and less effortful.
Practicing alone also improves emotional expression. Learners can explore how to express agreement, doubt, excitement, or concern in a natural way.
That emotional range is essential for real communication. Language is not only about information, but also about feeling and intention.
Another benefit is becoming comfortable with complexity. Learners practice combining ideas, adding explanations, and expressing conditions without feeling overwhelmed.
Complexity grows naturally when learners are not rushed. Solo practice allows that growth to happen at a steady pace.
Practicing alone also helps learners recognize when to simplify. Clear communication often means choosing simplicity over complexity.
That judgment improves effectiveness. learners learn that being understood matters more than sounding advanced.
Another habit that develops is consistency in language use. Learners begin to use certain structures confidently because they practice them regularly.
Consistency creates stability. When structures feel familiar, speech flows more easily.
Solo practice also strengthens awareness of context. Learners adjust how they speak depending on the imagined situation.
That adjustment prepares learners for real-life interactions across different environments.
Over time, English becomes less about effort and more about expression and connection.
And when expression becomes the focus, communication feels more human and meaningful.
Another area that improves steadily with solo practice is self-trust. Learners begin to rely on their own sense of what sounds right instead of constantly searching for confirmation. This trust allows speech to move forward smoothly without frequent stops.
That trust changes the experience of speaking. Instead of analyzing every sentence, learners focus on meaning. Over time, this reduces mental fatigue and makes communication feel lighter.
Solo practice also strengthens the ability to stay on topic. Learners practice developing one idea fully instead of jumping between points without connection.
Staying on topic improves clarity. Listeners find it easier to follow and understand the message when ideas are connected logically.
Another useful exercise is practicing comparisons. Learners can compare experiences, opinions, or situations. This develops contrast language and deeper thinking.
Comparisons encourage structure and balance. Learners practice explaining similarities and differences clearly.
Practicing alone also helps learners manage long sentences. They learn where to break ideas and how to keep sentences clear.
This control prevents confusion. Even complex ideas become easier to follow.
Another benefit is improved awareness of repetition. Learners notice when they rely on the same phrases too often and begin replacing them naturally.
Reducing repetition makes speech sound more confident and varied.
Solo practice also supports deeper listening skills. Learners become more sensitive to how language sounds and flows.
That sensitivity helps learners adjust pronunciation and rhythm without constant correction.
Over time, learners develop a calm speaking presence. They sound more relaxed and controlled.
That calm presence makes communication more effective and enjoyable for both speaker and listener.
Another subtle benefit of practicing alone is learning how to manage attention while speaking. Learners begin to balance thinking, speaking, and listening to themselves at the same time. This balance is difficult at first, but solo practice allows it to develop naturally.
That balance is essential in real conversations. When learners can monitor their speech without losing their train of thought, communication feels smoother and more controlled.
Solo practice also helps learners build tolerance for uncertainty. Sometimes the exact word does not come immediately, but learners learn to move forward using what they already know.
That ability prevents communication from breaking down. Instead of stopping, learners adapt, which is a key fluency skill.
Another useful outcome is improved sequencing. Learners practice explaining events in order, which strengthens storytelling and clarity.
Sequencing helps listeners follow the message easily, especially in longer explanations.
Practicing alone also encourages reflection on tone and politeness. Learners can practice sounding respectful, neutral, or confident depending on the situation.
That awareness prepares learners for professional and social settings where tone matters.
Another advantage is learning how to end ideas clearly. Learners practice finishing a thought instead of trailing off.
Clear endings make speech feel complete and confident.
Solo practice also develops endurance in listening to English. Learners become comfortable hearing English for longer periods.
That listening endurance supports comprehension in real conversations and media.
Over time, learners feel less pressure to perform and more freedom to express.
and that freedom allows English to become a natural part of everyday communication.
As we reach this point in our conversation, one idea stands out clearly. Practicing English alone is not a limitation, but a foundation. It gives learners space to grow, to make mistakes, and to build confidence without pressure.
That space is valuable. When learners understand how to practice alone effectively, they stop waiting for perfect conditions. They realize progress comes from daily effort, patience, and self-trust.
English improves when it becomes part of daily thinking, not just scheduled study time. Small habits, repeated consistently, shape fluency more than rare moments of intense practice.
And confidence develops quietly through these habits. The more learners practice alone, the more prepared they feel when real conversations appear.
Learning alone teaches responsibility and independence. It shows learners that improvement is always possible, even without a classroom or a partner.
That independence stays with them. It allows continuous growth long after lessons or courses end.
So whether practice feels easy or challenging, every session matters. Each moment spent speaking, listening, or thinking in English builds something lasting.
And over time, those moments turn into fluency, clarity, and confidence that feel natural and earned.